All right, everyone, tomorrow is the big day, the day in which I suspect Bernie Sanders will probably, in a de facto sense, he'll get knocked out of the Democratic primaries. In the four states that are to vote tomorrow, you just had a debate last night. I'll analyze that in a minute. You've got Arizona, you've got Illinois, Ohio, and Florida. I'm predicting Bernie loses all of them. I believe Biden will win all four states, especially Florida, where he, in the aggregate, and this is a poll of polls, in the latest polling period, he's running on an average, I think, of 35 points ahead. The aggregate has him, I think, at 42 ahead. In Illinois and Ohio, we don't have a huge amount of polling, but, it agrees with that, maybe 20, 25 points. Same with Arizona, where we've got a couple of polls to aggregate. I need to study last minute today any additional polls, and then tomorrow, actually in the morning, I'll give a final sort of rundown as well. But looking at the debate that was held last night, that was really Bernie Sanders' final moment to be able to defeat Biden, because he's running so far behind. He's 18 points behind nationally. He's more than 20 points behind according to every poll out of all of the March 17th states. The problem is that if Bernie gets a bump, let's say he gets a 10-point bump, he probably still loses all four states. So Biden will then get a bump of inevitability thereafter because four additional states won, clean sweep. The news of the day is Biden just crushed Bernie Sanders in the biggest test since the field is narrowed to two people. He will then win. Biden will be nominee. That's my prediction at this time. Looking at the debate itself, it really doesn't change anything. Bernie Sanders, as I predicted, did better overall. If you look at analysis of it by the lamestream or by sort of the Twitter pundit mafia crowd, it's generally agreed upon Bernie did better, but not well enough. Here's the problem. Looking at the response, the organic response, the perception of the debate as opposed to any objective concrete reality, the perception is very much between Bernie versus anti-Bernie. And the Bernie fans lose out. They may have power on Twitter or Tumblr or on parts of Reddit, but in the real world, that's not a thing. In the real world, Bernie Sanders is below 40% nationally. He has failed in most of the states. He lost on Super Tuesday. He lost in the last slew of states badly. He's probably about to lose on the 17th. He will, at that point, be fundamentally disqualified because it would be impossible for him to actually reach the delegate threshold. At that point, just by Florida alone, Joe Biden gets very close to knocking Bernie Sanders out of the ability to even achieve a majority. Maybe a plurality, but not a true majority. The problem is that the debate doesn't change things much because even if Bernie has a better day, it's such an insurmountable gap. And the big takeaway of the night, really, and this is what everyone is really buzzing about, is that Biden, not Bernie, Bernie's not even trending right now. And this is on Twitter, which is definitely Bernie territory. Biden is the number one political trend because he swore up and down and vowed and promised that he'd have a female running mate. Now, this is very interesting because it means that he might be about to do what John McCain did. John McCain wasn't doing that badly. Yeah, he was running behind Obama because he was a Republican coming fresh off of the disaster that was George W. I have every reason to believe he would have come a lot closer to winning if Sarah Palin hadn't been his running mate. The fact is that choosing a female running mate in and of itself is not going to sway that many votes. There is an element within the country that tends to lean heavily Democrat anyway, that is very, very concerned with having somebody with mammary glands in the White House because they're sexist. Do you really think that they're going to care about the fact that the VP is a female? Oh, first female VP. Nobody cares about that. They care about the presidency. That's the glass ceiling. They want to shatter that. They don't give a fuck. Your throwaway career move to try to cement your voting block is going to fail. And then it really depends on which female you choose. Let's say that Biden, who is crazy, is truly crazy. Let's say he chooses Elizabeth Warren or something. He loses. It's going to make it, the situation will be worse. His best bet would be Klobuchar. If he's going to pick anyone that ran in the field, it would be Amy Klobuchar would definitely be the best received. The problem is, she's white. That's not going to help with the identity politics crowd at this point doesn't just want, a minority so-called, and females, of course, are not a minority group. As VP, they want a president who is a triple minority or something like that because that's what they've been promised. He'd probably, I have a feeling he'll choose Kamala, and I think it'd be a disaster. Because everyone hates Kamala, and she debates like a toad. I think it would be terrible. I think that he would lose much of his coalition if that were to happen. Especially, Klobuchar is the safe bet. Kamala is sort of the renegade bet. That's the one that I think that he would probably end up at the end of the day going with, and I think it would actually sink his presidential ambitions. I think he'd lose a couple of points of support if he chose that. The big takeaway, though, does belong to Biden for the night, and there are some voters. This is an attempt to undercut Bernie Sanders, who hasn't really pledged this. That probably works. This staves off any Bernie buzz right before, the voting, which happens tomorrow, because the other news of the night could have been, well, Bernie Sanders generally handled himself better and attacked Biden's record. He finally went on the attack, though. That's one thing you can say for Bernie. At the end of his political career, on the very eve of losing another 4 states and knocking himself out of the race, he finally got the balls to attack somebody. How very, very interesting. Well, you were never a liberal, and you fought for segregation, and you did this, and you did that, and you said a thing, 50 years ago. It's inept, though. The things he would attack Biden for, he's attacking from a far, far left perspective, from a socialistic perspective. He's attacking a person who did. You may not agree with his achievements. I certainly wouldn't, because I'm not a Biden Democrat by any means. But he did achieve something. And here's the real big goddamn glaring problem. Bernie Sanders hasn't. And Biden's voters are not going to vote for a socialist simply because that socialist says Biden did a naughty thing 50 years ago. Dude, Trump has been hammering him for 6 months already on his record. Anything Bernie Sanders can point out is already fresh in everyone's minds on Twitter every single day. The fact is, though, at the end of the day, Biden didn't convince a single Bernie voter to vote for him. Bernie didn't convince a single Biden voter to vote for him. I don't see this changing the metrics at all. It'll be interesting to see if there's any gap between the polling, which tomorrow we'll have the final slew in before the voting happens. It'll be interesting to see if there's a gap between that and the actual result. I wouldn't expect the debate to change things. I am saying that in the end, Biden did well enough. If it's a 60-40 sort of thing, that's well enough for Biden with a 20-point advantage going into these states to win them all by probably a double-digit margin, which will really, really amp up his delegate count. It'll really extend his lead. And losing all 4 states of the day, it's disqualifying to Sanders. At some point, being an underdog that's running close is fine, until late in the race. But the later you get in the race and the more you're falling behind, the more likely it is that people's chants go from Bernie, hail free stuff to Bernie, goddamn drop out, otherwise Trump is going to curb stomp Joe Biden, who will inevitably be nominated. That's really going to hurt. It's going to hurt all the Bernie fans when he comes out and endorses Biden, by the way. We're going to fight for a revolution. Oh, no, we lost the revolution. Quick, vote for the establishment to stop the establishment. That's about all. Peace out.